My schedule has been a little bit on the rough side, and I ain't had time for this, but today I do. We got positive vibes. Look on the bright side. This is something that we hear very often. And can you see the space, the design principle? Like, look at how much space there is there. Sometimes I think that when people say look on the bright side, I see it as a neutralizing statement. Let's say that I'm legitimately bringing something up and someone just tosses that at me. But look on the bright side. It almost sounds like you're justifying that whatever it is that is challenging in nature or negative, you're in a sense invalidating its impact. I have learned over the years that that's not necessarily always the case. It's not always a dismissal of the severity or importance of something. It's genuinely there is something to be taken out of everything. There is a positive thing that can be brought out from everything. Even tragic things can bring about positive things. Now, when it comes to extreme conflict, severe conflict, I cannot say I see the benefit of it. Like, say, during World War II, I cannot imagine something particularly positive coming out of it in the immediate aftermath. But something that has always intrigued me about war is the more distant in the past it is, the more you actually appreciate what came out of it. Because, for instance, to fight wars, you had to be innovative. And the innovation is something that I feel like in the modern day, there's really nothing innovative that I can say is coming out here that's really propelling us forward. AI is definitely not it. I think that AI can be a good thing in fields where your own computational skills can run into a wall sometimes. Sure, throw it into AI, let it work its magic. But when it comes to AI as a form of pushing product onto you, pushing a narrative onto you, I just think that that is super phony. Things like digital money, I still am not convinced about how this is supposed to be good, even from the perspective of making voting be an even more accessible thing. I just don't understand how the system as it is set up currently is really an issue. But I guess it's hard for me to identify an issue when I'm not experiencing a limitation. I don't have a lack of internet access, for instance. I remember a time when I had an inability to access the internet, let it be due to financial restraint or because I ended up breaking the items that enabled my access to it. And as a result, because I couldn't just drive anywhere at any time, then accessing it would have been trickier. And I can see how for other people who have particularly busy lives, it could be an issue. But when I think about the meaning of innovation, I look at it as something that everybody as a collective can really experience the immediate positive of, because it's something so new, so on a class of its own, that you just feel it immediately. And when I think about digital advancements, I'm like, I have already been able to pay digitally. I have already been able to produce content without the intervention of a computer. A computer taking my image, a computer trying to take my place, producing my voice, things like that. This is not a burden. And I cannot imagine that people far more resourceful just cannot be bothered by being present on this thing. If you yourself cannot be present doing something, let it die. And I think that sometimes people have trouble letting go of things. Going back to wars, with war, we ended up with inventions that affected us down the line, like generations after. Internet, radio, communication, advancements in medicine, maybe our clothes also got an upgrade. To me, innovation that came out from war and conflict is great. But to take that and twist it, because why not? I love twisting things. Have you guys noticed how The evolution of war has made us even more dispersed. I don't expect for what I'm getting ready to say to make a lot of sense superficially, but imagine how the war for this country was fought. What we have read about it is that people were actually on fields, they were shooting at each other back and forth. Our soldiers could face the opposite soldiers. War was personal. You were fighting it with guns, with sticks, with blades. But in more modern times, even war seems to be tied with isolationism. Like how isolated we are. We order food, we can do it from our phone, we don't have to interact with anybody. Some people have remote work. You just log into your computer, you do your job, you don't have to interact with a person face to face. You do not see that face of the person you're affecting. You don't see them coming up to your office with kids, with spouses, anything like that. War, in a sense, you don't see the face of the person who hit you, who shot at you. Now, war is fought in a sense from a distance because you can have things like cyber attacks, you can have bombings, you can have drones do the attacking, but drones are not manned. So maybe the last thing you see is this non living thing causing you harm on behalf of some nation where real people live. Does that make sense? Okay, to put this in more fucked up terms, if you meet a survivor and this person who has served as a soldier has killed anybody before, they can tell you the story of what this person that they killed last moments were, but it's because this is a human survivor. You wouldn't be able to ask a drone, hey, so what was it like to look in your enemy's eyes and take the life away from them? Even the way that we fight against each other, the way that we conflict with each other, still has an element of being isolated. And I don't see that isolation as innovation. You might look at it as, well, now our men and women don't have to be deployed to fight these things. And maybe that's bad. Maybe that's a problem because now we don't have people coming back home with trauma, with injuries. We don't see that cost of this conflict. We only focus on the fact that, haha, yeah, we did damage. We destroyed towns, destroyed cities, civilian casualties, collateral damage. But yeah, our men and women didn't have to pay for it. See what I mean? I'm happy that maybe war casualties are not what they used to be. They used to be in the thousands and the millions, but those thousands and millions of casualties had stories to tell. They had a palpable effect. Now, it only seems like it has only 50% effect, which is the side that does not have technology deployed to take the place of a person to fight at the front lines. The machine is not going to come back home and tell you about what towns and people being blown up looked like. And maybe that's why our humanity is suffering so much. Does that make sense? Do you see why I'm not impressed by this innovation? Maybe because I don't see its effects face to face, I don't understand the damage that this incurs. Am I thinking too much about this, or does that not matter? But I also think that there are innovations that represent a threat that we don't consider until the threat is here. And we are aware that the threat is there, but we haven't ensured that the threat will not impact us. But when the threat ends up impacting us the way we feared it might, we start scrambling and freaking out, trying to come up with a solution in the process. This could have been easily avoided had you just not done that in the first place until you're ready to launch something. Apple would be my favorite example. They keep releasing these devices pretty much incomplete, telling us, oh, this feature will be available later. Make sure that you have your device up to date so that you can indulge in it. But I'm like, Why would you not include that innovative feature on the newest model if I'm gonna have to wait anyway, which the modern person does not like to wait? And on top of that, the new features will have bugs because this is the first generation of this new thing coming out. The bugs haven't been discovered entirely. Other issues will come up, and by that time, it'll be time for us to upgrade to the next thing. That's why I don't like for that type of thing to get me involved with it from the get-go. What felt innovative about Apple is, you remember how our old phones, the way they were launched, that was pretty much how they were at default. You had a phone with physical buttons, the physical keypad. Those buttons never evolved unless you were somehow in a page where that button had a slightly different effect, but at least your entire screen now has the potential to be a button, to evolve into a button, or to stop being a button. That was innovative. The fact that my own screen acts as buttons as opposed to, oh, the screen only serves as a display, and then next to the screen, I need to have the buttons that control what goes on with the display. But after that, oh my God, you put a camera on it. Cameras had been around. You're just finding a way to make it convenient to where they are all together now. But I didn't have any issues with carrying my digital camera separate. In fact, I miss it sometimes because it allowed for my phone to have a focus, which was texting and calling, and then my camera for photographing things, and then my music exclusively being in a separate device meant that that device focused only on music. Now, music can have a video attached to it depending on where I'm accessing the music. It's just really stressful. What is the bright side to that? The bright side to me multitasking and my attention span being everywhere. What is the bright side to that? Like, no. When you impress me, that's when I'll get involved. And I guess another example I can think of would be, I wonder what people's reaction to how we trade things was. For instance, back in the day when you had to trade things like pieces of gold, animals, bartering, when money ended up evolving into your dollar bills and your coins and stuff, what was people's original reaction to that? Were they upset that they no longer had to carry heavy things with them anymore? And when we moved toward credit cards, debit cards, the card format, were people really upset about that? Or were they welcoming of it because they saw the convenience of it? Let me tell you, I wouldn't like to carry a goat with me to the market so that I can tell somebody, hey, I have this little goat right here that I would like to exchange with you for other things. I guess that evolution was more appropriate for the time given what actually existed at the time for you to want to trade. It seemed like the things that we were trading were like items. We trade an animal for another animal-ish item, or maybe food, or maybe property, whatever it was, property in the sense of the value of this animal, what it's going to produce can help me buy up a little piece of land because this is a money-making machine, and the piece of land that I want to buy, if I'm smart enough, I can turn it into a money-making machine that's going to pay me many times over. In the same manner, me trading this goat is going to pay this person many times over. So now the things that we exchange, stuff that we actually own and buy and things, is not what it was at the time. So maybe people's perception of evolving forms of payment, it just had to be different. And that's the part I'm not clear on. Because I wonder, in the same manner that I'm kind of like not really understanding and being against further changes to our currency system, because I don't see the fucking point, honestly. And say banks running out of cash. Sure, you need to have something backing up the value of what you have in the bank, but how come it's possible for me to simply transact using a little piece of plastic, but yet we still have to have a physical representation of what my money is at the bank, when the bank doesn't always have my money at their branch, at their facility? Sure, the digital currency is trying to fix that, but I still don't like it because it makes me feel like the way we consume movies, we used to have to actually own the physical carton, the physical tape, the physical CD for it, but now we don't. I'm grateful that we don't, but it also makes me feel like I don't own anything. Sometimes it's hard to look on the bright side of those things because all I see is what I'm losing, what I'm supposed to be gaining, and my conflict is when what I'm gaining doesn't actually surpass what I'm losing. Because these things now, I don't own physical things, because instead I own a continuous bill, a continuous subscription to a system that will grant me access to those things. I used to own the physical copy of a movie. Now I have to own a subscription monthly to the catalog where I can access this movie now with current gen consoles, current gen technology. How is that progress? I'm paying for this many times over. What if I only need access to 10 movies, but I'm paying for the whole catalog, access to it, yearly? How about if you give me a one-time entry fee of, I don't know, $500, and after I pay those $500, it's over. I'm forever in this club of accessing these movies, especially old-ass movies. I paid for that old-ass movie when it came out to the theater, when it was available on VHS, when it became available on DVD, and now I gotta pay for it to access it in physical copy-less format. That's just greedy at this point. What is innovative about that? It's only innovative if this is your first time participating in the consumption of such items. If this is the first time you ever had access to a specific Disney movie, then sure, this subscription may be worth it for you. But for me, I only see it as I miss the days when I only had to pay one very trivial fee and I had access to this thing. But now, to maintain this online club of me accessing a catalog for media, now it's just a continuous bill. Am I really winning here? Is it really a big deal that I have to declutter to have access to these things? Because I don't know, maybe another motivation is that as opposed to having to access a drawer where you kept the DVD or the VHS on, you had to physically get up to switch out the movie. Now when the movie is over, you can click part 2 or next episode and it just automatically plays. I guess the only way this is helpful is I don't have to take a TV with me, a VCR or DVD player with me when I go out or travel, and the way I want to pass time is by watching a movie. That would be impractical. Now I can have a carry-on screen where I can access it. But what if that's a distraction? What if when I'm out on vacation, as opposed to absorbing the experience, I'm gonna be distracted by my handheld? Learn to be bored. I am grateful for the lack of clutter, but I'm also not grateful that decluttering now is a subscription. I don't see the bright side to that. I used to think that bad stuff was just bad and there was nothing else to be looked at from there. My favorite recent example is when Mom had her accident back in the spring. Fortunately, everything went well. She was not injured, at least not severely. She only hit her ankle with the pedal, we're assuming, and that thing got really sore and bruised really bad. But outside of that, she was fine. And when we thought about what was the point of that? That's when she realized that maybe what she wants to do is leave because she had to retire and she wasn't finding anything. Now she went back to be closer to the family, and every time I talk to her, she is in good spirits and she's sharing good stuff outside of, the political challenges that we have everywhere we go. At least she's having a better relationship with the family now than what we had back in the day. And that is quite relieving to hear. So in a sense, I look at it as, had she not gotten in that accident, maybe life would have continued with the same routine that we have, and maybe she would have ended up applying for a regular job. I, as a young, experienced person in modern day regular job, is not ever recommending this on anybody. Thinking about my elderly mom doing all this with the kind of pressure, physical and mental toll that it signifies, I would have been super worried about her. So in a sense, I look at that as, out of something negative, which was the wreck, the mess that all of that incurred and everything, the gain from it far exceeded the loss. By extension, it also helped boost my own personal life because, for instance, my boyfriend and I ended up having to discuss some things, and we ended up uniting in a way that has opened up opportunities for us now. And that is something that I can be grateful for. On that March day, a lot of things were set in motion that resulted in the brighter side. Those times were very frustrating and challenging. I shared it with you guys here, the pressure I was feeling, how I anticipated it was gonna suck on me, and I was aware of it at the time, but as it happened, I still wasn't thrilled about it. But at least being realistic and having an eye into the future helped me cope with it a little better, I guess. But I can say that I experienced that look on the bright side pretty often. And another messed up way I guess I can say I experienced this is when I have some kind of a debt that's big. Let's say I have a car repair that's really expensive. Because it's expensive, my goal now is to get that money back somehow. And that means that I'll be eating out less, I'll be spending on recreation far less. I'll be less willing to try unnecessary things, such as the urgent and serious matter that is growing my leggings collection. It's those things that if you allow yourself to look on the bright side, you will see the bright side. And even at work, sometimes I think about, oh man, someone who I really like is leaving, but in their place, we might hire someone who may challenge us for a bit, but it turns out to be a gain in the long run. Or we hire someone we thought was going to be good, they turn out to be bad. But collaborating to deal with this challenge as it exists, it helps you deepen your bond with other people. Like say with my manager, we have had times in which we had not so great employees, and it's not that they were bad people or anything. We were just not compatible in the workplace. We would just get together and I would ask for advice on how to better survive with this person. And he himself would sometimes be like, there is something I would like to communicate to this person, but I'm just not sure how to go about it in a way that doesn't come off potentially offensive. And I'm like, well, I find that if you describe to people using a cause and effect format, it works. You can say something like, hey, I have observed that you interact with this person in this specific way. This specific way, there is nothing wrong with it, but considering this person's circumstances with this other thing, it may result in this. So how about if you try this instead? Cause, effect, but to make it effective, add a resolution, add some kind of solution that will allow this person to continue to be how they are, but in a way that doesn't hinder the other person. So yeah, look on the bright side. You can be whatever you are. It may be negative at first, but it's an opportunity for you and those around you to try something new. You have a difficult situation to address. How do you build up to it? How do you address it? and how is the outcome executed. To me, that is the bright side. When the outcome ends up being what you expected or surpasses it. I hope this made sense, guys. It's kind of hard sometimes to talk about bright side of things because I don't always necessarily want to use exact examples because I don't want to disclose certain things, but I do agree that everything can have a bright side. Even when I have been hurt in the past, like one time I messed up my foot, I looked at it as, well, under normal circumstances, I'm never really resting. It taught me to take time to just physically chill out and do nothing and understand that the path to greatness doesn't always involve you taking action. Sometimes inaction can be the bright side. Inaction meaning that you get to rest, recover, repair. That is time well spent. And I think that one's easy to forget because sometimes you don't think as inaction as something that can have a positive outcome. You think that results can only be obtained through action. And that's not always true, at least in my experience. All right, guys, that's it. Bye.